Hello and welcome to Saints TV Season 2, Episode 1 of Behind the Saints. Candle Genius here to my left, Duke Scoop, across the table, not your average Joe. And today we are recording, or broadcasting, or whatever it is that we're doing, from Beeland Ag Risk Services HQ, and our special guest today is Coach Drew Clevenger from the St. Ansgar Saints football team. Welcome, Coach Clevenger.
Thanks for having me.
So, Drew, Clev, Mr. Clevenger, what should we call you?
Whatever you want. Drew's fine. Clev's fine.
How about Buddy?
Leave it to Travis to ask. Big guy. First off, thanks for joining us and agreeing to do this with us. I just think it's such a cool opportunity to talk about our football program and what we've got coming, what we expect for the year. So appreciate you taking the time to do that. At the parent meeting the other night, I think you said this is your 25th year as the head football, so clarify for me. Talk about your 25 years.
25th year as head football coach, 27th year total. I was an assistant coach for my first 2 years here and then took over football year 3.
Yep. Fantastic.
Which is hard to believe it's been 25 years.
I was just going to ask, so is that something that goes as quickly as it has for me the last 25 years?
Definitely. I kind of fell into a situation. I was actually going to leave St. Ansgar, was looking for jobs and had interviewed several places, and the football job came open, and I kind of took a real quick look at it and decided I wasn't going to pursue it, and was still looking for jobs out of town, and it kind of never sat right with me because that was one of my goals, was to be a head football coach, and a long story that I won't bore you with here, but eventually came back around to me, and I ended up taking it and been here ever since.
That's fantastic. Talk about your assistants, too. I know you mentioned the other night as well that a lot of those folks have been with you a very long time, too, right? A big chunk of those years.
Yeah, I'm the luckiest coach in Iowa, or certainly North Iowa. I have a great staff, guys that I enjoy personally, guys that are passionate about kids and passionate about football. So, sometimes I'm the name that you see in the newspaper article or on a TV interview, but I don't think I'm really more important than any other of the coaches out there. I delegate, let my assistant coaches coach, and I think we work collectively really well together. We all kind of check our egos at the door, and we're all pulling in the same direction. So, touch base on that. Devin Schwesaw, this will be his 25th year in the district and 25th year helping with football. It's kind of we're the same age, graduated high school the same year. Our kids are all roughly the same age, so we've kind of grown up in this program together, and he's been instrumental in certainly the success we've had. Brian Meyer, St. Ansgar native, came. His first year would have been the fall of 2002, so this would be his 23rd year with us. Let's see, Luke Nielsen, who played for us, graduated high school in 2003. Came back to the district in 2010. I actually coached volleyball for a year here and then joined our staff in 2011. Eric Klein, again, another St. Ansgar grad. He started with us, I think, in 2005 and coached for about 7 or 8 years, then took a couple of years off when his kids were young and came back in 2015. Let's see, who am I forgetting? Coach Patterson Carter, again, another St. Ansgar kid.
Yep.
Graduated in 2006. Graduated in 2000.
I'm impressed with what you're remembering so
Right.
far.
He graduated in 2006. 2010 was his first year helping with us. Josh Steinberg graduated in 2010, I believe, right around there. This is his third year helping with us. And then we have a new addition this year, Jordan Reindl, who had been at Northwood Kensett, was a Northwood kid. Have the good fortune that he joined our staff as the athletic director, and he's helping out for his first year. So I think I hit them all: Devin, Brian, Luke, Eric, Josh, Carter, and Jordan. So yes, seven assistants, and then me.
Oh, awesome. And how cool is it to be able to coach some players that played for you? You coach them as players, they come back years later and join your staff. That's a pretty cool feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's education, or in the classroom, or in on the playing field. It's a relationship business, and it's kind of fun that somebody that I had 20 years ago roughly as a student, as an athlete, that they thought enough of whatever was going on at St. Ansgar that they wanted to be a part of that later in their professional lives, or in some cases their professional lives different, but they volunteered their time to help us. So, like I said, I'm very fortunate to have such good help.
Awesome.
Which one gets on your nerves the most?
Well, I try and be pretty laid back about things for the most part. Everybody has their different personality quirks, including me. So, I'll hold that one close to the vest.
I figured. Joe wanted me to ask it. So.
That was Joe's question.
Throw me under the bus. Appreciate it.
It speaks to we talk about tradition here in St. Ansgar all the time. And when you're bringing in coaches that also graduated from St. Ansgar, it's got to make your job easier as a head coach to know that the leaders that you're bringing in understand the system and understand what it means to be a Saint.
Yeah,
Well, it's got to be nerve-wracking, too, because you taught them, so if they're no good, it's almost your fault.
That is true. I think there's a reason people come back, and it's because of the culture we have within the town, within the school, hopefully within our football program as well. But yeah, it's gratifying to see kids that you've worked with when they were young, whether they played football or not, that go on and have success in whatever they decide to do. And it's been fun for me to see those guys grow up and be good fathers and good husbands and good workers and community members, and then the ones that come back and help us. It's just icing on the cake.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the 2024 version of the Saints. What are your expectations for the year? Give us the 10,000-foot overview of what you see coming.
Well, I tell our kids this all the time going into the season. Our expectations really are the same every year. We expect to win a district title. Doesn't always happen, but those are our goals and those are our expectations. We want to qualify for the playoffs, and we want to have be playing our best football in the postseason and be a tough team to beat. So that's we're not shy about it. I think that's probably what everybody's goal should be going into the season. Some years maybe that expectation is more realistic than others, but that's our expectation going into this year.
Yeah. So with those expectations and all the talk, guys like Not Your Average Joe going on this thing once a week, talking about rankings and everything that's out there and expectations, and how do you keep kids focused on those goals? And hey, we don't care what the noise is outside. We care about what's happening inside our program, and rankings are what they are, especially preseason. So how do you help kids focus on what's important?
I think our kids do a good job with that, actually. And maybe we help them, maybe we don't. But, I think we try and just be task-oriented or focus on what's right in front of us. We can't really worry about the big picture from week to week. Whatever you're ranked or even the expectation of winning a district title, you don't do that all at once. You do that by getting continually better each day.
Sure.
This game we have coming up Friday is an important game. It's a non-district game, but certainly a county rival and always a fun game to be a part of. So we'll find out a little bit more about ourselves Friday.
Fantastic. Talk about who's back. Obviously there's 40-plus kids on the roster. Looks like 24 of those are upperclassmen. That's always a good stat when more than half your kids are upperclassmen going into a football season. Talk about who's coming back and what your expectations are for some of those key guys. Have the good fortune. We have good senior leaders. The senior group's a really interesting one. I don't think they won a football game in junior high over 7th grade or 8th grade. I think they maybe tied their last game, but they didn't win a single game. And then, as freshmen and sophomores continued to get better, and it's not just them, how they blend in with the class ahead of them and the class behind them. But, I to a man, I think if you ask those kids in 7th or 8th grade if they thought they would be in position to be a pretty good football team by the time they were seniors, and we're not there yet, but we have a chance to be. I think it would have been surprising to them. So, you start with our seniors. Off the top of my head, since I don't have a list here, up front, Dylan Hansen was been a real key player for us last year, offensive and defensive lineman. Weston Paulson, who has a chance to be a really good story. He played spot duty in a lot of special teams as a junior. But we think he has a chance to be a really good player for us as a senior. And we've had a lot of those kids over the years, kids that wait their turn, keep doing the things we ask them to in the weight room and keep getting better. And we think Weston has a great chance to do that. Dylan Brum was an all-state cornerback last year, second team, I believe, and kind of a big play guy on offense. fastest man alive. So
Well,
The fastest man alive.
at least these eyes have ever seen on Sage TV. Man, that guy's quick.
Yep. Jace Schwesaw back as a defensive back and a quarterback. He's a coach's kid, kind of a prototypical coach's kid, but kind of a headsy player. And really, if you look at Jace, what he looked like physically as a freshman to what he looks like physically as a senior, he's a totally different kid. He's up over 190 pounds. He runs pretty well now. He's gotten to be pretty physical. So let's see, that's 4. Who am I missing? I don't have a list in front of me. John Polito was a move-in, I think halfway through his sophomore year. Has a chance to do some good things for us this year. Tyson Klein, another coach's kid who, was a real contributor last year, not a standout or anything like that, but really when he got a chance, he was behind a couple good players in the backfield with King and Michaels, but when he did get in there, was pretty effective. So, he maybe doesn't have a lot of starts to his name, but we feel like he's got a lot of big game situations with him. That's 6. I'm missing, let's see.
Zach, Daniel, Drew Carlson.
Yes, thank you. Zach, again, a kid who's been with us for 4 years, hasn't had a lot of time with us, played some special teams for us, does a little kickoff for us, a great personality, always engaging and excited to be there. Drew Carlson will get some time at tight end this year. Again, a kid who you couldn't ask for anything more in terms of work ethic and character and what he does for us. And then Sutcliffe, another kid that moved in, I think halfway through his sophomore year. Will help us at split end and defensive backfield. And am I missing one? I'm one short.
Peterson.
Peterson, sorry, Luke.
No, like I said, when you don't have the list in front of you, I happen to have the list, so it makes it easier.
And then Luke, another 4-year guy that we're looking to contribute his senior year. But, we've had a lot of those kids that maybe didn't contribute until their senior year. I can think way back, the name Kevin Wolf was a graduate in 2003, I think, really never set foot on the varsity field till his senior year and was an outstanding guard for us. A Weiss kid, Willie Weiss was kind of didn't play a whole lot till his senior year and ended up being a first-team all-district offensive lineman his senior year. So, that's kind of what our program's built on, is kids continue to do the things we ask them to do, continue to work hard in the weight room, get a little bit better each day, and then hopefully we get a great story of contribution out of them by the time they're seniors.
Well, we've seen the shirts that say "Do your job," right? And it isn't that just it's on display in the football field, and you see all those younger classmen. They're on the sideline. They may not get a single minute of varsity time, but they're there. They're there in the heat of the first games of the season, in the cold of the last games of the season. But every one of them recognizes what their duty is on that team, and of course, give it 100%. And their day is coming. They know their day is coming, whatever that is they're called to do. And it seems like you do a great job of motivating those kids to do their job and do it well.
Yeah, if you're out for football, I respect you. It's not easy. We work hard. In today's world, sometimes hard isn't what kids are always choosing. But I'm a big believer that football is a great game to teach you a little mental toughness, teach you a little physical toughness. And I think when you leave high school, if you have a little bit of physical toughness and a little bit of mental toughness, I think that'll serve you well moving forward. But every single kid on our team has a role, and we ask them to embrace that role and be the best they can at that role. If they're just the kickoff guy and that's the only time they're on the field, then do your absolute best on what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's 22 spots out there, right, that need to get filled, and a couple of them multiple times a game, and everybody doing their job. So, okay, I think back at last year and the season that Hunter Hillman had. After obviously he played some as a junior, but not in a role like he had last year, and the difference that he made for your 10-1 squad last year. That's it's kind of fun to think about. Well, who of those guys you just named is that guy this year? Where did we said that several times last year? Where did Hunter come from? Where did this guy come from? In terms of how we looked on the field, man, that's fun to see.
Yeah, Hunter certainly made a big jump across the board in every sport between his junior and senior year, and was an outstanding football, basketball, and track athlete for us last year.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, and that I think that hats off to you and the staff to get kids to continue to show up and hang out and do their job and be a part of it, knowing that I may have to wait my turn, and it might be a lot of years of watching, and when it is my turn, it might be that I'm the kickoff guy. But if you're willing to do that, good things happen, and it's obviously been reflected in your success as a program, and we're sure proud to help represent it here on Saints TV. So appreciate you going through that. If you had to pick a position or a battle that's going to be key to watch in this early season, do you have one you could throw out there like, watch that right tackle spot, or we got some receivers we think are going to make a difference this year, or obviously your running game's going to be revamped this year just because of graduation. So talk about anything we should watch as we watch these first 2 or 3 games kind of play out. Who do you think will be key in that?
I don't know if I have a specific one for you. We think we have an idea of what our best lineup is right now, but sometimes those things change once we get to games. There was a Gerbig kid back in 2006 who, as a junior, really didn't get much playing time early in the year, and then week 3 or week 4 got in at, I don't remember what the reasoning was. He got in at safety and kind of made that position his own. He just kind of rose to the top once the games were going, and he ended up being one of the best safeties that we've had in the last 25 years. So, every job's evaluated constantly. We think we have an idea what our best options are right now, but we'll see when we get actual live game tape and how things look, and we'll keep coaching kids up.
Let's go through the schedule. You guys want to jump in and just kind of talk through? I'm going to save week 1 for the end because we'll do week 1 preview kind of as our wrap-up here. So let's start with week 2, which is a North Union team that obviously we played last year. They traveled to St. Ansgar this year. Return Grady Madden, quarterback, 1,100 yards passing last year, 14 touchdowns. Most of his receivers graduated, it looks like on paper anyways, that they'll have to do some replacing there. And, of course, they lose their big back, the Hagedorn kid, to graduation. He had almost 1,000 yards rushing last year. What do you expect to see out of North Union when they come to town?
Well, first of all, I'm glad they're coming here because driving over there has to be one of my least favorite drives on a bus. I was looking through their roster early last week, I think, and looks like they got great numbers and without knowing a lot of names, looks like they got decent size, so on and so forth. Certainly, quarterback's a good player and a good place to start, and I think their coach does a good job. They were never really on my radar, and we played them in 2021, and they had a really good running back and quarterback, and we got in a shootout with them at home and barely beat them, and so I think they're doing a lot of good things over there. So, but I specifically, other than their numbers and the quarterback, don't know much about them right now.
Yep.
And talking about North Union, because we played them the last 3 years, right? They came here, and then the last 2 years we traveled to North Union.
Yep.
And I think in all 3 of those games, we played them after. I mean, they had pretty good beginning of the season, as I recall. And on paper, they looked really, really good. I have to believe, and then we beat them all 3 years. I have to believe that they're looking at that Saints game and saying, all right, we're not going to underestimate these guys. We looked really good until we played them the last 3 years. We want to come and surprise these guys, right? So maybe my question is all around the season, do you expect to do anything or see anything different this year? And I know we're pausing on, we're trying to get through the schedule, but even looking at passing, we passed over 150 or 100 attempts last year. We haven't done that since 2017. Same quarterback behind center this year. Do we expect to do something different there with running versus passing balance as a team this year?
Well, we kind of play to our strengths, I guess. We have a foundation of what we think we can be good at every year. At a school our size, we won't always have the athletes that can catch the ball, or maybe a quarterback who can throw it. We feel like we got a good quarterback who's shown that he can be a good quarterback, and we feel like we got some kids on the outside that can help us there. So, we've always played to our strengths, whether you talk about 2018. I think Kramer was the quarterback that year, certainly.
And Ben Bergeron, 17, right?
Ben,
I think he had a bunch of attempts as well.
Ben would have been in the fall of 2015 and 2016. Ben,
okay.
So he was 1,000 yards, give or take, both of those years. So, when we are able to throw it, that makes things a lot easier for us. So if we can do that, certainly that's something that you will see.
Excellent. Sorry to interrupt. Go
no,
ahead.
I think that's
game
good.
3.
I think
Joe.
I think as we go through the schedule, let's because I have a couple of questions I'm going to slip in there as well, just about what we might expect. So game 3, the Eagles of West Hancock. We go to West Hancock, I believe, if memory serves. They graduated a few of the Smiths. We joked last year, like if you see a play, call it a Smith, and as a broadcaster, you're going to look pretty smart because there was like 9 of them on the field at all times. 3 of those guys are gone. Mitchell Smith, Kellen Smith, and David Smith all graduated. Obviously 3 very key guys for them, but these are the West Hancock Eagles. We fully expect they reload and come back. We got a glimpse of some of those young guys. I know we've played them at the lower levels the last couple of years. They look really good at that JV level. They had some kids that got into games last year or made an impact just as sophomores. So obviously there's without knowing a lot of names other than Creighton Kelly, the Gomez kid, a Bixel, who all played significant time last year that all appear to be back. Teague Smith, of course, back as well. So just from a tradition and a history standpoint, we know they're going to bring it. What do you expect to see from West Hancock?
Oh, they've been the gold standard for decades in North Iowa. When Bob was there, Bob Sanger, and now that his son Mark has taken over, I like Mark on a personal level, and I think he does a great job with his kids. Maybe we kind of have similar philosophies. When you see them, it's going to be a fight.
Yep.
Their kids are up front. They're going to get off hard. Their backs are going to be flat, and they're going to bring it at you. So, they're the names other than the Smiths, who they have had so many. But the names on the back of the jersey change. The name on the front doesn't, and the way they play doesn't.
Nope.
So it'll be really interesting to see how things go early season for them. I expect them to be very successful. And really, if you look at their team last year, the team that they were playing, the kids they were playing with at the end of the year, a lot of the kids up front were underclassmen. So I expect that to be a real strength for them early in the year.
Yep, that's one of the notes I had. It looks like a lot of their line that played at the end of the year when they won the state championship will be back. So that's obviously key for the style and the brand of football that they play. From just a philosophical standpoint, we've played them a bunch over the last 10 years. I think we lead that series 7-3 or something like that. Always physical games. We've played early on. We always played those games late in the season. The last couple of years, we've played them very early in the season. Do you have a preference? If you could pick and set the schedule, you like playing them week 3, or would you rather push it back?
I'd rather push it back probably, but we don't set the schedule. And, whenever we play them, we know it's going to be a good game, or hopefully we do our part to make it a good game, and it'll be a physical game. And, last year was important for us because the previous 2 years they'd kind of just taken it to us and really outclassed us. And I thought that was a real important game for us last year, early season. And we probably were fortunate to catch them early in the season because up to that point they hadn't really been in a game that was super physical. And whether we won or not, we knew that we would be fairly physical with them. And I think that we had with the Osage game a pretty good test early in the season. So we'll see what happens this year, but they'll be ready to play. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, it's a fun one to watch. I can tell you that game last year, from a broadcast perspective, was like that just happened.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Week 4, Belmond-Klemme, they were super young last year, so they returned a bunch of guys who have experience. Obviously, record-wise, didn't have the season that they wanted to. Expect them to be much improved. Anything different with Belmond-Klemme you expect?
I believe they may have a new coach. At least I thought I had heard that. I'm not 100% positive. If you watched the film last year, they did have some good young kids. The quarterback especially was a really nice young player. We go down there and play, which, it's been a long time since we've gone down there. I don't remember, maybe 2010, I want to say, I think is the last time we went down there. So it's kind of a trip and an interesting place to play. But I don't know much about them. I did check their roster, and it looks like they have pretty good numbers, so they're doing something right down there, and we'll see what happens.
I noticed that too. They have a long roster list, which is new for them. Yep. I don't think that's been part of the issue there. I think from a success standpoint, is they just haven't had the numbers, and it looks like they do now. And we commented on their quarterback last year during that game, like this kid's legit.
Yeah.
He's a good football player, and it'll be interesting to see another year under his belt. What that team looks like.
What are your favorite away schools to play at?
Well, that's a good question. The West Hancock's a fun one. South Wind, other than the drive, it's a beautiful new field over there. If you go way back, I kind of like teams that kind of hard-nosed football. They're going to play hard between, from the snap of the ball to the whistle, and then go back to their huddle and line up over and over again. Dyke, New Hartford, who haven't played for a long time, but similar in that vein. In terms of teams we've played the most, Osage and probably Newman Catholic are the teams we've probably played the two most in my tenure anyway. So there isn't a bad place to play. I talked to our kids about this the other night. We only get 8 opportunities to play in the course of a year, and we spend all that time working on it. So you just be thankful you have someone to play and be respectful, and it just makes it fun, because that's what we're all doing, is trying to have fun.
Week 5, Nashua-Plainfield comes to town, your second non-district game, kind of shoehorned in there in between those district games. Talk about Nashua-Plainfield. Obviously, their quarterback graduated, and Franzen, Titus Evans is gone. He's their leading rusher last year, but they do return 2 solid running backs, at least stat-wise, from a year ago. So what do you expect out of Nashua-Plainfield?
New coach again this year. He had been there previously and then gotten out, and then is back in now as the head coach. So I know him well. I know, the kids you mentioned that are back, Greiner, I think, is one of them.
Yep.
A really good football player. I know they're high on their junior class this year. There's a Kalanoff kid in there who's a really good all-around athlete.
For sure. Watched him in basketball and baseball, both Eli. He's a good athlete.
So, I think they've continued to rise as a program a little bit in the last few years. In my time anyway, they've been kind of up and down, where maybe things were good for a while and then not so good. But I think they're rising to a higher level of sustained success, and they don't have their roster up yet, so I haven't been able to check their numbers or anything, but I expect them to be plenty good this year.
Mm-hmm. Looks like they've got kind of a similar situation running game-wise as to us. They've got some kids who have contributed, had some numbers in the book from last year, but obviously lose a couple of guys as well. Talk about the Saints running game, and as we look to replace, we talked about King, the older Michaels and Christian, Reagan Witt, all 3 of those guys with big yardage numbers from a year ago. As you look to replace those, what's that look like?
It's tough. Those kids were all special players. You don't just replace them by them leaving and a group coming in. It takes an awful lot of work, and until we see it in a game situation, we won't really know what we have. We think we've seen enough out of the younger Michaels, Corbin and Tyson Klein and Connor Mullenbeck, that as guys that weren't first line guys last year, but did when they got in, acquitted themselves well. So we feel good about that. But until we see it on a Friday night, we're all kind of wondering the same thing, but we feel positive about it, I guess.
Yep. I think at one point last year, Tyson Klein at the end of a varsity game and a JV game the following day, was 5 touchdowns and 5 carries, kind of thing.
I remember that.
Like you said, how does that translate to varsity full-time starter? But man, it sure is. It's got to be comforting as a coach when you go, we've got these guys who've had some success. We know what they've done at the other levels. They've been waiting their turn, and now their turn's here, and let's see what happens. And I think it's kind of, again, a testament to your program that we've got multiple options there. And I'm glad there's only going to be one Michaels on the field, so that way I can't get them confused this year.
It's too easy to confuse those guys. They look the same.
I'd be fine with 2 of them.
I hear you. That part was kind of special. It was like, that wasn't Christian. That was Corbin. Yeah. Well, either one, they look kind of the same, and boy, they sure play football hard too. They look the same in that regard as well. Newman Catholic, Week 6, Cal McGuire returns quarterback, 900 yards passing for him a year ago. I know they were disappointed in their season last year. I think they ended up 2-6. They have a couple of good running backs back. Anything you expect different, or kind of that same flavor Newman team as we've come used to see in the last? Seems like we've played them multiple times a year for several years, and we've played them for 10 in a row. It seems.
I think they're the only team that we've played every year that I've been head coach.
So you have played them every year for 25 years.
And 1 year we played them. 2003 we played them in the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think the one time they weren't in our district or we were different classes, we played them non-district. So I believe we've played every year since I've been head coach. I think Rich does a good job. Rich McCardle, the coach down there, does a good job. Took over after Coach Dirksen left probably 6 or 7 years ago. Their numbers look like they're pretty good, and I think they're optimistic about how things are going into this season.
Yep.
So, yeah, and anytime Newman and St. Ansgar play, you never know what's going to happen.
In anything, it seems.
And we're dealing with 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, so as a coach, you do this long enough, you never take anything for granted on a given night. And, Newman certainly has a rich tradition of playing good football.
Week 7, West Fork. I believe we go to West Fork this year. Sage Sunken was kind of their guy a year ago. Tackles, rushing yards, passing yards. Sage Sunken was their guy. They're going to try to replace him with Dax Sunken. It looks like. I don't know. I assume that's a little brother. Yep. That looks like he's the kind of the returning guy that they'll look to try to replace. What will be a big loss with Sage with Dax. What do you know about West Fork as we go ahead? And I don't know. That's 8 weeks from now. But what do you anticipate we see there?
They're always athletic. In terms of kids on the perimeter, they always got kids that can run, kids that can jump, and generally pretty good ball skills. Where we've had success against them in the years that we have, or when things go well for us, maybe we control the line of scrimmage a little bit better. But that's a program that like I said, they find their footing every now and then. Mm-hmm. They've just struggled to keep that consistency up. But I expect them to be improved from where they were a year ago.
Last week, Week 8, Lake Mills comes to town. They return a couple of seniors. They're going to have a senior quarterback in Helgeson, Price and Christensen, both at the running back spot. Of course, big losses with Kaufman and Bacon gone to graduation there. But they were a team that I think surprised a lot of people last year. I don't think they surprised you. I think I remember having that conversation. We kind of saw that one coming, and they were athletic and fast. We played them on a really sloppy field over there in the regular season, right? I think that was the night that we tried to ruin all this equipment in a rainstorm.
Yeah, we did.
I think they did ruin their scoreboard that night because it rained 2 feet in about an hour, it seemed like. But anyway, talk about that Lake Mills team and what you expect out of them.
Well, obviously the quarterback's a good place to start, and the Price kid, I think, is their running back, and they have 2 really good linemen, the Stensrud kid, and I think Hannah kid's the other one. They're both 6'5", 245. Yep. Were really good players as younger guys and juniors. So, certainly they lost a little bit skill-wise, but, with what they return up front and some of their younger kids that they have, I expect them to kind of pick up right where they were last year. I expect them to be a pretty good football team. Mm-hmm.
Talk about your line. You talk about kind of the unsung. We always talk about the guys with the rushing yards and the passing yards and receiving yards and big tackle guys, but a lot of that work, especially in our brand of football, happens up front. Talk about our line, both offensively and defensively, and what you're looking forward to and who you anticipate making big steps there on our line.
We starts in the middle with Dylan Hansen, who really just went to another level kind of at the end of last year, was playing really good football by the end of last year, and as a senior maybe has been a little bit of a better leader than I would have anticipated, or certainly I would have anticipated when I had him in Little League Baseball 10 years ago.
I'm surprised by that too.
I love it.
He's really done a good job up front with us. The Halverson kid, who started last year as a sophomore, probably before he was ready, but that was the situation we were in, is there. And then, I mentioned Paulson, who, has kind of been a guy that's been waiting his turn. We feel like we got, maybe one of the spots that we feel best about going into the season is up front on the offensive line. We feel like we got not just 5 guys that can play, but we feel like we've got a little bit of depth there across the board. Part of that is because we have, like you mentioned, we're heavier in the upperclassmen there. Kids like Beeson and, Derek Heeman. Hale Dietrich's kind of been a swing guy for us. Hudson Ostrander, Jackson Vroom. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but, all those junior and senior offensive and defensive linemen have really kind of grown into their bodies. When we see our kids over that 4-year period, typically where we see the biggest jump in terms of, physical ability and in terms of being bigger and stronger kids is typically between the sophomore and junior year. Part of it's kids just mature. Part of it's they've been in our weight program for 2 years, and a lot of times kids come back their junior year and they just blow away what they were like as sophomores. So we feel, again, we haven't seen live fire yet. We haven't seen teams blitzing without a coach, telling them here's how we're going to pick this stuff up. So we'll find out a lot more on Friday, but certainly with I think any level of football, football's blocking and tackling, and when we feel like we're good up front, typically that lends itself to us offensively having a better season and defensively as well.
And it's a physical game, and the luxury of having extra guys, so to speak, right? Like you said, or hey, we don't just have 5 guys. We might have 7 or 8 that we feel good about. And you never know in football when you need all 7 or 8 of those guys. It's next man up, and here we go.
Coach Clevenger, I want to ask you, 25 years doing this thing, what would you say the most significant changes you have in yourself as a coach from year 1 to year 25?
Well, that's a good question. When you take over something at 25 years old, you don't know what you don't know. I don't know why they decided I was a good choice. I was probably the only choice, quite honestly. I look back at, how I did things, or, you kind of grow up on the job. I'd been an assistant. I'd played football. I, knew football at least a little bit. But until you're a head coach, you don't really know what goes into it. I had the good fortune, as I mentioned earlier, that I've had some great assistants, that cut their teeth with me a little bit. We've all kind of grown up together. I think the biggest positive thing that I've seen is I think we've made the game safer than it's ever been. I think when I played 30 years ago in high school, the equipment I used and how we approached things, much different than how we approach things now. Equipment's much better. While it will never be a 100% safe game, it's a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. It is a collision sport. I think in terms of how we teach it, how we coach it, the protocols we have in place for kids, I think it's made the game a lot safer and allowed the game to continue to thrive. And for me personally, did you want that too?
I really want to know you personally. Yeah. For anybody out there who's maybe new to coaching, that is the 25-year-old, just like what could you tell them? What advice could you give them to say, look, this is here's from 25 years of experience doing this thing?
I think probably me on a personal level, I think having kids, when I had my own kids, like became a father, that probably changed me more than anything.
Yeah.
Made me more empathetic, and maybe not as much of a hard case as I was when I was younger, and I still can be, but that would probably be the biggest change in terms of personality for me, in terms of dealing with kids. But, we still coach hard. If kids know you care about them and you have their best interest, kids are receptive to that. That's certainly never personal when we coach hard, but, we're all out there for a reason. We're all out there to get better and compete and give ourselves the best chance.
25 years, that's a lot of games. If you could have one game back, I wish I would have called a different play, or I wish I would have done something different. What would you have done differently?
Oh, there's too many. I mean, there's too many. I told our parents the other night at the parents' meeting that the first game of the season, nobody's going to make more mistakes than me. It's just kind of the nature of the business. We've been fortunate that we've won at a pretty good clip here, but the ones that you lose, there's been some pretty tough ones there too. So, even last year, it was a great season, 10-1, no doubt about it. We were playing really good football until we weren't, and we didn't play great football that night, and we got what we earned. We deserved to get beat that night, even though I felt like we were the better team. They outplayed us that night, and sometimes that just happens. It doesn't diminish what we did last year with the district title and all the fun we had, but it was certainly a disappointing way to end the year.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you want to sock me during that halftime interview?
I've always got time for you, Travis.
That was a very
That's a
PC
great answer.
Yes. It was my fault. I will own that when I'm up there talking away, and Travis is like, "Wait, I got coach. We gotta go." So I was going, but Joe and Travis are not on the same page, and we're causing a delay on the field.
Sometimes, Coach, we could have made a better call too. We messed that one up. So we'll try and do better.
We'll be
year.
better as well. Absolutely. You talked about having kids, and obviously you've got a couple of boys on this team. I tell folks one of the best things I've ever done is coach my own kids in high school sports as part of the baseball team, and one of the hardest things I've ever done is coach my own kids as part of the baseball team. Talk about that. Is your perspective different on that, or do you agree with me that it's great but it's challenging at the same time?
I would say both. Yeah, it's great because you get to be around your kid more. I enjoy that. When the older one, Joe, started, we had that conversation that, okay, I'm out here. I'm not dad. I'm coach here, and there may be things you hear that are coming from coach and aren't coming from dad. So we kind of keep it separate. Coach Sherman gave me that advice a long time ago. Yeah. And he said that he had a strong wife that wouldn't allow that type of talk to happen at the dinner table between dad and son disagreeing about something at football when Matt and Joe played for Coach Sherman. So I found it to be gratifying. I think football's a great game, or whatever extracurriculars kids are involved with. They're an extension of the classroom, and so I feel fortunate that I get to work with two of my own kids.
Fantastic. All right, let's go to the topic at hand. We are 5 days or so away from this thing getting underway, which is hard to believe, and in some regard, it feels like we just wrapped this thing up from last year, and here we go again. The years sure go fast. But Osage, week 1, it's been I couldn't tell. I guess I could have looked. Several years, right, where we started the season with Osage, either home or away. So we kind of continue that. As you look at and break down week 1, what are some keys to victory for the Saints going into week 1?
Well, anytime you play Osage, it's always a tough game. I feel like there's been years where we were maybe more talented than them, or they were more talented than we were, but the games don't always play out that way. Sometimes good for us, sometimes bad for us. So, it's interesting because it's week 1, an awful lot of unknowns, not only about ourselves, but also about them. You can kind of extrapolate a little bit from what they did last year and some of the kids that played last year. And by the end of last year, I think the kids that they were playing, that lineup maybe looked a little bit different than the lineup we played. Seemed like they got younger as the year went on in a lot of positions. So, that benefits them coming into this year. It's going to be a really interesting Friday night. I think Chris Kyle, their coach, does a good job. It's his second year as being head coach. From experience, I can tell you the first year is a tremendous learning experience. So I'm sure he feels better about things now that he's gone through a year as head coach. I think they do a good job on a yearly basis, and they're always athletic. They're always physical. They always have kids that can run. So we go into this game every year. In my mind, we're an underdog every year. Obviously, they're a 2A school. We're a Class A school, but we like to play them. We feel like games against good teams, good programs like Osage, even though they may be a little bigger than us, they help prepare us for where we want to be down the road. So it'll be an interesting matchup on Friday night.
If my Mitchell County rumor mill is accurate, Quinn Street out with an injury. It appears for maybe as long as the entire season. We expected him to be a quarterback. So with that, again, I believe that's true. Without Quinn Street, how does that change what they're going to try to do? Obviously, they had speed there with him. Do we have an idea of who they're going to play quarterback, or are we going in kind of blind with this? And how does that impact your planning? Kind of two-part question of what do you do there when you know, like, all right, we probably aren't going to see Street. So who are we going to see, and how do we plan for that?
First thing, it's a tough situation for them, and a tough situation for Quinn and his family. Injuries are the worst part of my job, even though it's not our team, and from a competitive standpoint, it may benefit us. I hate to see kids. You don't get very many opportunities to do this, so it's a tough situation if that's what ended up happening with him. I feel bad for him and feel bad for his family. From a competitive standpoint, we don't know. I guess we had an idea maybe if Quinn was going to be the quarterback based on his strengths, and certainly he's very athletic, one of the preeminent athletes in North Iowa, that he would be dangerous running the ball or throwing the ball. So we're flying blind a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to be quarterback. I maybe have some logical assumptions, but as of right now, that's all they are is logical assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
So
how does that impact how you plan then?
I don't. You can't guess. I mean, they have a system that they ran last year, so I doubt if they're going to make a wholesale change. 8 days before, or 10 days, or 2 weeks before. So their system's their system. I'm sure they'll run it very well. Maybe they'll lean on different parts of what they do a little more than they would have had this situation not occurred. But they got 4 kids back from last year on the offensive line that were playing up front. They got the Trees kid back at running back, who's a hard-nosed, tough kid. Some of the kids in the junior class, like we see, they make that jump between sophomore and junior class. Those kids, the Dodd kid is one that comes to mind. We expect them to be much improved. And defensively, same thing. They return a ton of kids. The Christensen kid. So they return a lot of good players. So it's going to be we'll have to be at our best. And if we're not at our best, we'll get beat.
Yep. Key matchups we should pay attention to with that game in particular, with their system versus our system. Any particular battle that you watch?
Well, I think it's comes down to the line of scrimmage more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
The years. And really last year they kind of dominated us up front, which is a little worrisome because they return a lot of kids and we don't return as many. And at least when we are on offense, they kind of dominated us with their defensive front. So that's an area we need to be better at, or it'll be tough. They sling it around a little bit more than we do, so we need to be communicating on the back end and understanding what's happening. And football's football. Blocking and tackling and take care of the football. Don't turn it over and win special teams, which I'm sure is exactly what they're saying to their kids right now too.
Last question from me, and then I'll let you guys wrap us up here. But obviously, it's 90-something outside. It's 80-something in here with the air conditioner going. It's going to be 90+ degrees tomorrow. What's your adjustments do you have to make to practice schedule when this heat? How much impact does it have on what you do?
Potentially a lot. We'll see what things are. We're using a new measure this year called the wet bulb instead of the old heat index chart with temperature and humidity.
Mm-hmm.
The wet bulb gives you a more accurate depiction, and through the High School Athletic Association, there are parameters of things that we'll do. And as coaches, we want our kids to be feeling good on Friday night, so we'll kind of play it by ear. If we have to go tomorrow, Monday's a lighter day for us anyway, so if we have to go no pads tomorrow, that's what we'll do. But again, we may end up playing football in hot weather like we did last year against Osage. It was quite warm that night. Doesn't look like it's going to be as warm this year, but it'll still be warm, so our kids need to get acclimated as well.
Back when I was in your class,
yes,
sometimes you would go, "Hey, I need to talk to you after class," and then I was always thinking, "Oh, I'm in trouble," or "What I do?"
Yeah.
And then I'd come over and you'd just show me a new song you'd found. so we're at the end of the show now, and I don't have a song to show you, but I wanted to ask you, if you're like a pro wrestler, what's your entrance song? What song have you been listening to lately?
If I say Taylor Swift, is that bad? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's bad.
I do like Taylor Swift. Oh, geez, I don't know. Let's go Mr. Brownstone, Guns N' Roses, from when I was in high school.
Man,
there you go.
That's a good one.
That's fantastic. Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us so much, taking the time out of your busy schedule this week. Best of luck, week 1. Best of luck this season. Obviously, we're so happy to be along for the ride. We anticipate we'll see you a few times throughout the season here for sessions like this. So we're excited about some of the content that we're going to bring here on Saints TV. And best of luck as you take off into this season. Can't wait to watch it all play out.
You bet. Thanks, and thank you guys for what you do to help promote our programs.
This is a whole lot of fun. Thank you, Coach Clevenger, for being here. Candle Genius, Duke Scoop, not your average Joe, signing off. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Coach.
You bet. Thank you.